So I know a lot of us can relate to Shane Dawson's fear of flying and fear of death that we clearly saw in the first video of his new series, The Beautiful World of Jeffree Star. But if you can relate to that fear, in this video, we're gonna talk about 3 different ways you can start to overcome it.
Good evening. It is me, Lala Kitty. Okay, just kidding. I can't keep that up. Oh, Jesus. Hey, it's me, Lila Kitty. Welcome back to Snackity, where I try to bring you more milk and less... So today, something that I thought would be kind of interesting and fun, and I'll be honest, I was inspired to do it when watching the playlist of videos that the Rewired Soul has posted about the Beautiful Life of Jeffree Star series by Shane Dawson, that I'm going to just do candid commentary going through the videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down his videos double speed, and every time I stop and have commentary about something that he's going to say, I'm just going to interject it. So let's get started. Let's go. One of the goals while I'm doing this is to try to keep my own video as long or shorter than Chris's original video. And also, I would encourage going to watch his videos because, as he says, if they are monetized, he's going to be donating money to charity. The first video in the series is how Shane Dawson faced his fear in the Beautiful World of Jeffree Star review by the Rewired Soul.
What I try to do is take different topics going on in the YouTube community, try to see what lessons we can learn from them, and I will be covering the entire Beautiful World of Jeffree Star series from Shane Dawson. So make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. And something new that I'm doing with every single video, granted that YouTube monetizes it, I'm giving 20% to a charity that kind of relates to the video. So this video, please share it because 20% of all the ad revenue is going to the AFSP. All right, this is an awesome organization. They do a lot of events around the country as well. So make sure you check out their website. And if you would like to donate to them directly, I will provide a link down in the description and down in the pinned comment below. All right, but anyways, the wait is over. It's been about a year, right, since the Minor J Colony just launched his first video for the Beautiful World of Jeffree Star. And yeah, I think he said it's gonna be 9 episodes. But the first episode was great. Last year, a lot of you were introduced to me because I was covering the Minor J Colony.
If you watch my Get Ready With Me about what these series are going to be about, you'll remember that I mentioned that that's actually how I found his channel. So this is just very interesting how it's kind of like coming full circle. Not to sound too like incredibly spiritual or witchy about it, but it just seems really, I don't know, it's strange to me.
I'm like, just seeing it reminded me of last year. I was so inspired, and I have a whole piece of paper with a bunch of notes for different topics. Anyways, this first topic, we're going to be talking about some stuff that Shane Dawson talked about when he was talking about his fear.
Man, I can see it in your eyes. I just had like a whole moment with my neighbor. We went upstairs and we cried over each other. Future we're both safe. It's crazy. I used to not be afraid of flying, but every year it gets worse, and the happier I get in life, the worse it gets. It's like I don't want to die. Makes sense. So yeah, the fear of flying, that anxiety, the fear of death, this is something that is extremely common.
One thing that's probably going to come up quite often and is going to become the lockout, tag out drinking game is how often Chris himself addresses the fact that the videos that he's making, the topics exist well enough outside of the world of the celebrities that he's covering that he could just be covering the topics.
It's something that I can relate to, and maybe you can too. All right, so in this video, we're not going to be talking so much about the anxiety aspect of it, but that kind of existential, like, fear of death. So I'm going to be referencing this amazing book that I just read, and oh my god, I hope you get a copy. It's down in the description below. I'll put it down there. But anyways, it is called The Antidote: Happiness for People Who Can't Stand Positive Thinking. Like, how dope is that title? But it's by a guy named Oliver Berkman, and it's so good. It's so good. Like, if you are prone to negative thinking and you don't like all the, like, kind of hippy-dippy positivity, kind of self-help stuff, like, get this book. Like, it's amazing. One of my favorite books.
Every book that he just finished is like his favorite book. Oh my God, you've got to go check it out. So one thing I was thinking about earlier this morning is if anyone wanted to take up another side of this torch would be go read all of the books that he suggests and then do what he does to the celebrities in these videos, which is basically taking stuff that's in these books that he's reading and forcing an application of it to something that's going on in like current hot entertainment news topics.
I just finished it, so good. I did an audiobook. It's pretty nice. Anyway, so I'm going to be pulling from that. So Shane Dawson, when he talks about that fear of death, I want to talk about a few different things that were discussed in this video. So like you saw from that clip, something that Shane Dawson talks about is, he talks about how weird it is, right? Like, his anxiety and his fear of death has gotten worse, which doesn't make sense because his life is getting better, right? And I can so relate to that, and some of you might be able to relate to that as well.
I can't because it makes perfect sense. When your life is terrible, you have this death wish. You're like, oh my gosh, like, wouldn't I just be better off dead? Like, there's that meme that I really love, like, surely I wasn't born to just work, pay bills, and die, right? But then when your life is good and things kind of start rolling and you have, like, you own a house and you have a great significant other and you have awesome pets and friends and you're doing great projects and people love the stuff that you're doing, like, that's when you get afraid of, like, oh my gosh, and now poof, it's gone. I'm gone. Poof, it's gone. It just is over. I want this pleasant feeling to continue. I genuinely, and not to be like a snarky hater, but I really have trouble wrapping my head around how this is controversial.
So the way I can relate to that is in my addiction, right? Those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Chris. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, 7 years clean and sober. But anyways, like, I wasn't afraid of death. I wasn't. I was actually hoping for death, right? And when I first got sober, I was still absolutely miserable. But, and something I try to teach people is, when we're at that bottom, when we're at that low place, there's only one direction to go, which is up. And it's kind of like this liberating experience, right? And, you know, Shane Dawson has been very open about his mental health issues in the past and everything like that. And life is getting better. And for some of us, like, I remember when I got sober, my anxiety got worse. So one of the things that I learned about myself was, my anxiety got worse because I was used to chaos, right? Like, sometimes we've been living in chaos so long. Like, sometimes, like, we started out in a chaotic household. Like, I'm the son of an alcoholic mom, everything like that. Like, you might have grown up in an insane household. And when things start to get better in your life, like, your brain isn't adapted to it, right? But the other thing we need to talk about is, as things get better, we start to fear death even more because of attachment. So in the book, The Antidote, he references a bunch of different philosophies, such as Stoicism and Buddhism and everything like that. Those are two of my favorite philosophies. But attachment is something that leads to a lot of suffering. So our fear, a lot of our fear is based in worrying about what we're going to lose, right? So like, if you look at it, what Shane was talking about, you know, my life's getting better, like, it's getting better and better. Why am I getting worse, right? Because he has more things. It's not just the stuff. Like, we all know, him and Ryland moved into that new house, but like, him and Ryland got engaged. You know what I mean? Like, he has Ryland and love and all these other things. And we get so afraid of losing that.
I would have to go back and watch the clip that he just showed again and whatever, but something that immediately strikes me is that I don't think Shane insinuated that he thinks that this is odd. I think he just said that his fear of flying has gotten worse because as his life has gotten better, his fear of dying has gotten worse. He actually just clearly expressed this point himself in the video with no like confusion about that sensation at all.
Something that's helped me might help you. Something that's helped me is therapy and antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications. But anyways.
He just mentioned being on anti-anxiety medications, but he also has several videos where he talks about people being put on potentially addictive medications and how you shouldn't be taking pills for certain diseases and stuff because they're addictive. Some of the most addictive medications on the market are the anti-anxiety pills. It's the Quaaludes that are no longer around, Xanax, Klonopin, Buspirone. The anti-anxiety pills are the ones that you can really get hicked on. Gosh, okay. I just took a drink of my carbonated beverage. Excuse the can. Shameless plug again for the Soleil, but to be perfectly honest, the Soleil kind of tastes like shit. Get something worthwhile. Anyway, back to the video.
Philosophy of impermanence, which is just learning that everything comes and goes. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is this dude right here, Albert Ellis. This dude right here. All right. So one of the best psychologists of all time. He came up with something called REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. All right. So a few months ago, I read one of his books. And he has a ton of books, but the book I read was How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything. Yes, anything. So Albert Ellis, one of the reasons I love him, because sometimes I get crap because I'm not like a licensed psychologist. Albert Ellis actually started out in a completely different field. I can't remember if it was like marketing or sales or something like that, but he just really was fascinated with human behavior, and he ended up going on to becoming one of the most well-known psychologists in history.
Because he actually went to school and got a doctorate in what he's talking about. There's a marked difference between coming from one field and changing career paths and comparing yourself to somebody who did that because you aren't a licensed psychotherapist. It's fully possible for you to go become what you claim to be. Like, I don't understand this aspect of his view of himself because go to school. What is the problem? I don't get it at all.
Is it rational? Is it logical to be afraid of death? No. Why? Because it's inevitable. All right. So why are we going to put emotional energy towards this thing and worrying about this thing that we have little to no control over?
You're not necessarily afraid of death, though. What people are afraid of is like a painful, like prolonged or weird sort of death. So like when you're afraid of like dying in a plane crash, it's not necessarily the dying in the plane crash that potentially bothers you. It's kind of like if you've seen the show Lost, right? And a lot of other movies. So like in The Green Inferno, this is something that happens too. You're afraid of being the person who's stuck in their chair that gets caught in the tree that then dies when the branch finally breaks and you hit the ground and break your neck. That's what you're afraid of. You're not necessarily afraid of dying in a plane crash. It's the death that's like instantaneous, you know what I mean? When something happens, and which is definitely of a greater possibility when you put yourself into certain situations is certainly a part of it. But I feel like for me, it seems more like you're afraid of the painful, freakish death than you're afraid of, you know, like if you're afraid of swimming in the ocean because of sharks, you're not afraid of swimming in the ocean. You're afraid of getting bitten by something and then the slow, painful death of bleeding to death.
Right? Now, this doesn't mean I just don't care about anything. Like those are my fellow people out there who struggle with anxiety. That keeps us alive, right? Like I always look both ways before crossing the street, always got my seatbelt on, everything like that. But tripping about the future and worrying about that, there's no point when it's an inevitable part of life, right? And something else that they brought up, which was really interesting in this book, was I never even thought about it like this. I was like, whew. So we're worried about death, right? And what's going to happen after this? We kind of think of this like abyss that we don't even know, right? But why aren't we as afraid looking back of before we were born? It was just this blank abyss as well, right? But now it's just going back to whatever that was. You see what I mean? And by the way, get the book. Oliver Berkman explained that a lot better than I did. But I'm like, yo, that kind of makes sense.
That really does. I give him props for mentioning that because that is like a really cool way of looking at it. You aren't afraid of thinking about how things were before you were born, right? So why would you be afraid of thinking about how things were going to be after you die?
Okay, and I guess there was a book that I just added to my wish list. It's called The Denial of Death by a dude, his last name's Becker. But anyways, it talks about memento mori, and this is reminding yourself that death is going to happen. So one of the things is that like back in the day, I think they talked about like Greek or Roman generals. They used to have people like follow them around like in the battle and stuff, like just reminding them like memento mori, like yo, bro, you might die, right? And here's the thing: when it comes to Shane Dawson, when it comes to you, when it comes to anybody, like having death in your mind it's a blessing, and here's why, right? Like the way to talk about it in the book is those of us who are actually thinking about death and having it in the forefront of our mind, a little memento mori, like we're more likely to make the most out of life, right? Like we're more likely to do things and everything like that because we're worried, like, what if tomorrow is my last day? You know what I mean? And I can tell you from personal experience because a little over 7 years ago, because of my drug addiction and alcohol addiction, I had a 10% chance of living, all right? Like the doctors called my mom and said he might not live through the night. So when you come this close to death, like every day is just like, we talk about in recovery, how we're living on borrowed time, right? So one of my goals each day is to make the most of it. Like one of the best ways I can explain this is whenever a tragedy happens, like whenever a national tragedy happens or even a global tragedy happens, people are always like saying, hey, remember, like tell the people in your life that you love them and you care about them and everything like that. And to me, I'm like, that's every day. Like when I drop my son off at school, I don't let him leave without him saying I love you back. All right, it's kind of like into the Spider-Verse, you know what scene I'm talking about. But anyways, like I treat every day like it's going to be my last day. And some days it's easier to do that than others. Some days I fall into a depression, I don't want to do anything, you know, or whatever it is. But I always remember how close I came to dying, and it helps me overcome my fears and things like that. Especially because I know, like I've already been to the worst, I've already been to hell and back, right? So just try. My suggestion is try to take that fear and turn it into a positive. All right, each and every day, tell the people in your life how much you love them and care about them. Don't, be afraid to do things because if something were to happen to you tomorrow, are you going to regret any?
That's another really good point to make too. Like how many times do you see people saying, and a lot of times in like movies and television when it's dramatized, but I'm sure in real life too, when people have that like remorse of the last thing I said to them was like, go to hell. Like the last thing that happened between us was this argument, or I was in such a rush today when I dropped them off at school. I was just like, don't forget your lunchbox, and like screed it away. You know what I mean? Whatever. Screeding, yes. But you know what I mean? So, and I'm picking up his habits, watching so many of his videos. But yeah, so just like this idea of like that these sorts of principles are not things that you should need to be applying to the idea of death. But similarly, do you notice how we haven't mentioned Shane Dawson since the clip, really? Like since the first like third of the video? There's a reason for that.
You know what I mean? Like the last thing I'll talk about is a few years ago, I lost my grandma and she was my number one, right? And, I feel I was able to cope with her death better than I would have been because I got sober a few years before she passed away. Because she was able to see me turn my life around. Like that might have haunted me the rest of my life. I have worked with many addicts and alcoholics when I was working at a drug and alcohol treatment center, and they're getting sober, and something they would often talk about is the people that have already passed away while they were still in addiction. You see what I mean? So use this fear as a way to go out there and just make life badass. All right? But anyways, if you have any tips for when you get stuck in this kind of rumination about worrying about this thing that you have no control over,
that's awesome. He used the word like rumination, so I mean like just kind of like the pervasive thought of like just getting caught up thinking about it too much, because that was going through my head too. I was like, it's definitely not good to ruminate about this though either, is you can't get caught up letting yourself just like go down the rabbit hole of destruction of thinking about this stuff too much.
And don't forget, please share this video because 20% of the ad revenue is going to the AFSP, and there's a link down below if you want to do a direct donation. All right, and don't forget, I'm covering this entire series. I'm doing at least 3 or 4 different topics on this first episode. And if you can think of any topics like, why did they do that? Is there anything I can learn from, or I can relate to this? What should I do? Like, let's have a conversation. That's what I love doing.
My channel isn't currently monetized, but in the event that it does become monetized in the future, I will also honor his thing, because since I'm basically representing his entire video, I feel like it's appropriate. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that, hey, so like and subscribe and watch the videos and stuff, because as soon as I become monetized, the money that I make from making videos about his videos, I'll also donate the 20% to the charity that he's chosen.